Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the two cards that I made using this Shimmering Snowflake stamp set that is a STAMPtember exclusive between Simon Says Stamp and Gina Designs. I'm going to stamp my snowflakes mostly randomly using Lawn Fawn's Merman and Minty Fresh inks. For this, because there's a small amount of snowflakes, since they are so large, I did have to kind of plan out where I put them just a little bit, and because I'm only using these two colors right now, that also took a little bit of planning. So it's not really random, but I tried to give the illusion that they were scattered more randomly. Alright, so if you guys like the stamp set, I am sorry to say that this one has sold out. Of course, Gina Design stamp set for STAMPtember usually sells out pretty quickly. So if you like her style, if you like those stamp sets, you got to get there pretty early or you're going to miss out. Alright, now here I'm using Simon Says Stamps, lots of snowflakes, and I am going to stamp these with second generation ink from both the Merman and Minty Fresh inks. I'm doing this just to give a little bit lighter of a color and give a little bit more variation to my panel. After this, I'm also going to stamp some of the little smaller snowflakes in white. Now, it won't show up as bright as if you heat emboss, but that's fine. I just wanted you to be able to tell there was a lot of different snowflakes all over the background. Now for the white, I'm going to use Hero Art's Unicorn Pigment ink. Again, this isn't really to create a very vivid snowflake, it's just to add a little bit more to the panel without it looking too busy or overwhelming. Now you guys will have to bear with me. I kind of jumped back and forth between the two cards because I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I started this card. Like most cards I make, I just bust out my supplies and see what happens. And so I came up with two completely different cards using the same stamps and supplies for the most part. Slightly different colors. Now here I have darker blue cardstock and the bigger snowflake that you can put a sentiment in the center of. This one is from that Shimmering Snowflake stamp set. I am going to heat emboss it on my panel, so, you know, anti-static powder bag, making sure that it's not going to cling everywhere. And for this, I did use the Hero Arts Unicorn Pigment ink because I wanted there to be white no matter what. So sometimes when you heat emboss, you get little bulb spots in your design, and when that happens, you would see the ink. The problem is with Versamark ink, you know, the embossing ink, you're not going to see anything. It's just going to be a bare spot. So white was the best bet. Now here I have my sentiment, same stamp set, fits right in the middle. I am using my white ink just because I had it there, but I'm going to heat emboss with this silver heat embossing powder from Ranger. Now I did save time and heat embossed off camera. It's not that special. Alright, and for making this stand out just a little bit more, I took my little ink cube of Chipped Sapphire Distress ink. It took me a second to remember what it was. And I'm just blending it from the center outwards. I don't plan on covering the whole panel, I just wanted to draw more attention to the center snowflake. Now, while I'm doing this, it is covering over my heat embossing a little bit, making it look blue. So when I finish, I do need to take a slightly damp cloth or baby wipe and go over my embossed image, which you'll see me trying to do here. I did mostly, can't even talk, you guys. I did most of that off of screen. Now I'm using the Nuvo drops in Silver Lining, and I'm going to add little drops to the little rounded points of my snowflake. I'm going to let this dry for a while after I finish this because it's me. I'm going to smudge something. I've done that quite a few times, so it's best to just let it go, leave it to the side for a while. This whole process took me days to do because distractions and other responsibilities that I had going on. Alright, now I decided to make a background for that dark blue card and I took my Versamark ink and I just roughly scrubbed around the edges. This wasn't done very neatly. You're not going to see most of it, just a little bit of the outside. So then I'm taking my silver heat embossing powder and I am sprinkling it along the edges. I heat embossed it off camera. This is already dried, obviously, or I wouldn't be able to do this. This was, like I said, days later. And I'm just attaching this panel to my silver one. And you guys, I had silver paper. And I spent probably 40 minutes looking for it, only to realize that the pad that it was in, I used all the silver already. So, yeah, I felt a little silly after that. To attach this, I'm using score tape. I don't usually do that, but because I heat embossed that panel, I really needed a lot of adhesive, and I wanted it to dry pretty quickly. So, to make sure it mostly was even, I just attached it from one side and then pulled off the other bits after the one side was attached. Now here I have some vellum snowflakes. These are from, what was it? Lawn Fawn Mini Snowflake Die Set. I love these. These are super cute. I felt like the vellum would be white enough, but not so white that it would compete with the sentiment. So I'm just scattering them along my panel around my main snowflake. And to adhere them, just going to do a tiny dot of glue in the center and press it down. I'm going to skip a lot of that. It's boring. Nobody wants to watch that. So you see a little bit of it just so you know that I am only adhering the centers down. And then fast forward, I'm going to add the same little Nuvo drops to the center of all of those little snowflakes. I think with the exception of the teeny tiny little snowflakes. I think I left those bare. But that was it for that card. That card is completely done. I mean, the dry time took a little while, but that was it. Alright, here I have my Minty Fresh ink. I believe that's what, nope, that's the Merman ink. I think. Yeah, I think it's the Merman ink. Guess I should have paid more attention when it was popped up. Anyway, I plan on cutting out 2 circles from this panel right here. And so I'm just trying to make sure I ink blend enough that they both of the circles will be covered. There we go. And now I am going to make little frames for each circle. And in order to do that, I'm just taking the same size die that I used to cut out my circles, and I'm taking the next size down, or maybe it was 2 sizes down. I don't know, however thick you want your frame. And you just kind of line those up as best as you can and cut it, and it'll make a frame for you. To color them, I'm using the ink pad directly to the paper. The only problem with this is there was a little bit of, I don't know, a dip in the paper from where it got cut. I guess it got pressed between the 2 dies and kind of made this little crease or whatever. The ink didn't want to go in there, so I am brushing it on. It will not be quite as dark as the other bits, but it's not really that noticeable. And now, for my sentiment, I am going to stamp and heat emboss Merry Christmas on the one side, and then I think the other one is Winter Wishes. And I'm using the same ink and white heat embossing powder that I used for the snowflake on the front of this card. Well, nope, not this one. The other card. You guys, I'm struggling. Anyway, that ink, because it's the type of ink it is, it actually dries pretty quickly. So, unlike Distress ink, I didn't really have a lot of wait time for that. The purpose of me doing 2 different sentiments on these circles is I am going to do a spinner card. So I want each side to say something different. Now you could do the same sentiment on both sides. I just feel like it gives a little bit more wow factor if it's 2 different sentiments or images. Now I'm going to glue these little frames around the edges. Oh wait, nope, that's not what I did first. I found a bigger circle die, and now I have to temporarily adhere my front panel onto my card base. So I'm just going to use a little piece of washi tape and I need to adhere my circle die down where I want to cut the hole in the front of my card. Now this hole will go through, like I said, the front panel and the front of the card. That was a little bit tricky to die cut. My plates aren't super huge. I did have to fold the card around a little bit. It kind of bent the sides in a weird way, but it's not really that noticeable. And here I'm using score tape for everything, and the reason I am putting it on the little circles is because I'm going to adhere them together, but first I'm going to put some string. Ideally you would use like a clear jewelry string or thin fishing line or something. I didn't have that, so I just used white sewing thread. I'm going to sandwich it between the two pieces of paper, but I also sandwiched it between some tape in the hopes that it would stay pretty secure. Now I'm gluing my circle frames on my circles. For this, liquid glue is the only way to go here. I don't know how you would manage anything else. That frame was so thin. Now for the rest of the card, like adhering the circle into the card, I basically did the same thing I did when I adhered the circle pieces together with the string in the center, which is kind of sandwich the string between not just the panels, but also more adhesive. For the extra long bits of my string, I didn't want to cut it off there because I didn't want it to accidentally pull out. So I'm just gonna kind of wiggle it back and forth in the adhesive using the backing paper to kind of press it down. And then I will sandwich it between a second piece of score tape. For this here, I maybe went a little overboard with the length on the string. You can cut it down more if you want. I just had a lot of room. I figured I would use it. Alright, for this, I always hate lining things up with score tape. So I just try to hold it in place and remove one piece of tape at the edge and then lay it down and then remove the rest. Now after that's been adhered, I did add some vellum snowflakes, and I am going to add some little white dots using my jelly roll size 10. Now for this card, when you put it in the envelope for your recipient, you have to spin it until it's, you know, fairly tight, so that when your recipient gets the card and they open it, it will spin. After I have finished adding my white dot details, my card is complete. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll be back with another video soon. Bye!